Hi, I'm Danny, and today I'm here with my August wrap-up and somewhat beginning of the September, and I'll explain why later. So the first book I read this month was Splintered by A.G. Howard. I've been meaning to get to this one for a long time. And what kept putting me off is that I kept hearing that while the beginning is great, the ending is just like a flat crash and burn or just plain disappointment. And in some regard, I would agree to that. The beginning of it was a little slow for me. It picked up right after they visit her mom in the asylum. And you find out all this information. And it's kind of info dumpy a little bit. But then you start to, but as the story goes along, you start to understand why you had to get all this information right then and there. And I did like it. This was my first Alice in Wonderland retelling, and I gave this a 3-star rating. The beginning, as I said, was a little slow, and the middle part was so good. It did not end the way I wanted it to, and the love interest in this book annoyed the hell out of me. I want her to end up with the other guy, but he was just plain annoying. It's like he could not let her make her own decisions. He kept telling her, this is what you need to do so we can do this so that we can go home. It's like, what if she doesn't want to go home? What if she wants to stay in Wonderland? Is that what they called it? Because I remember thinking like the Alice in Wonderland movie where it was actually Underland, but Alice called it Wonderland when she was a child. Oh, and the twist in this book about Alice was very good. I did not see it coming, and it was awesome. I think I will continue on with this series at a later date. Definitely not right away though, but it was good. Next, I listened to an audio book for Can you see that? Is it too bright? Let me turn it down a little bit. Next, I listened to an audio book for Brighter Than the Sun by Dorinda Jones. This is book 8.5, I believe. It is a novella, and it takes place from the time Reyes is born through his entire childhood. What was happening on his side of the tracks, I guess you could say, while Charlie was growing up, what happened in between him seeing her and saving her life. So it basically everything that happened in the series up until he broke out of jail. So that'd be from before book 1 all the way to book 3, I want to say. The beginning of book 3. And this is just his story, basically. Everything that happened, what he thought of Charlie, and how he figured out all his powers and everything, and how he figured out who she was. And I really did hope that it would at least go to book 5, or maybe at least to book 8, since this is book 8.5. But that didn't happen. But I did like it, and if you have not read the novellas in this series, they are still pretty good. They're very short and to the point, but they're good. I believe I gave this a 3.5. Next, I read Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. I am continuing on with my reread of this series, and I still did enjoy it, and I'm glad I did reread it because there were some in book 5 and 7. I remember my last reread of it, I found myself questioning, where did this come in? Because I didn't read the first 3 books. I just started with Queen of Shadows, and I'm glad I did reread this because those questions I had for the answers I had forgotten were re-answered in this book. So I'm glad I reread it, and it was still very good, though I found myself doing the exact same thing I did my first time reading this. Was let's get back to Aelin and Rowan, please. I don't want to be here. I want to be with them. Even with Manon, who I love Manon, I found myself still wanting to get back to Aelin and Rowan, even though I knew what happened. I still found myself feeling that way. So next, I read Catwoman Soul Stealer by Sarah J. Maas, and my copy of this did not arrive. It never arrived. First, it wasn't shipped out. I contacted the publisher. I mean the business I bought it through, and they sent it out, and it got sent to the wrong address. And so they told me they would send me out another one, and it just did not arrive. So I told them, just forget it. Just refund me my money back. I will buy it at a later date. So I ended up picking this copy up from the library, and I'm so lucky that I got it because I was for sure I was going to be like on the wait list for like 2 months or something. And thank God I wasn't. I got this pretty quickly, and I read it, and I really liked it. I won't say that this is one of her best works ever because it just wasn't. The Throne of Glass and the ECOTAR series, definitely two of her best works. But this was still very good. I was kind of nervous, ready kind of for a flop or an okay book, but it was very good. I loved all the heist moments and how all three of the girls, Harley, Catwoman, and Ivy, how none of them had exactly ever had friends. So when it came to the time for them to do girl talk, they were all so awkward and like, I've never done this before. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. It was hilarious and funny and sweet, and it actually made me cry at the end. I do not cry in books, but this one got me. But then again, Sarah, it's not the first time Sarah has made me cry, so I'm not surprised. But I really did love this one, and I gave this a 4-star rating. Next, I read Queen of Shadows by Sarah J Maas, and again, continuing on with my rereading of the series, and it was still very awesome. I still loved it. It was still everything I could have hoped for. I still enjoyed all my favorite moments, though I found myself at certain points kind of wishing to stay with the witches for a little bit longer. Kind of like I did my second time of rereading this, but at the same time, I really wanted to get back to our girl, and I still loved it, and my heart still pounded when Rowan showed up, and I still loved it. But yeah, so I gave this, again, the original, as I gave the original time, a 5-star rating. Next, I read Must Love Fangs by Jessica Sims. This one, at the beginning, was very funny, especially the awkward moments between the two potential love interests. And this is about, God, what was her name? This is about Marie, who finds out that she inherited the same genetic disease that her mother did. And it is called familial insomnia, if I want to be correct. Basically, when they try and go to sleep, their brain stops shutting off, like to make you go to sleep, make you go into REM sleep and all that. So she has insomnia, and eventually that insomnia will cause her to not only stay up 24/7, she can get like an hour or 2 sleep a week, and that's probably the only thing that's kind of kept her mentally sane. But there are certain times where she will see like blood dripping down the walls, or when she was at work, her mouse for her computer suddenly turned into a huge cockroach and all that other stuff. But luckily for her, she works for this supernatural agency called the Alliance, and people who are in the Alliance are allowed to become other supernatural creatures, and depending on what part of the Alliance you work in, depends on whether or not you would need approval to turn someone. So mostly everyone she works with is a were-something. Were-cougar, werewolf, were-tiger, they're were-something. And this is one of the groups in the Alliance that you actually need permission to turn into. And she thinks at first that she's going to be a shoo-in because all the wares have a female shortage problem. So which means all the males in the younger range of that specific class have no one. They either date mortal females or women who are like old enough to be like their mothers or something. So she thinks she's a shoo-in. She's healthy. She has, other than her insomnia, she's completely healthy, and she thinks she can get approval only for this were-cougar to suddenly change his human girlfriend without permission, which makes all the wares just completely blow up. And so now there's a even tighter restriction on the wares turning people. Such a restriction to where there's no possible way that she's going to be able to be turned. So she turns her attention towards vampires. And a were-cougar that she likes a were-cougar who likes her, but she just thinks he's a playboy, ends up kind of giving her pointers on what to wear, what to say, what to do to get a vampire interested in her. And like I said, at first this book started out really, really great, and then it kind of slowly started going downhill, especially when the two of them are just being plain stupid. I mean, the both of them, I wanted to strangle the both of them. Her especially, because she finally gets in with a vampire who she also likes, especially since she knows if this vampire turns me, he's most likely gonna want me to be his blood partner, which is basically like a vampire wife or a bride. And then she just does something after the vampire does something, and I'm just like, you idiot, get out. But yeah, so I ended up not finishing this one at about, let's see, just before the 300 page mark. So I was so close to the end, but I couldn't do it anymore. I could see the train wreck coming and I just couldn't do it. Next I read Once Burned by Jeaniene Frost. This is, if you've read her Night Hunter series, this is about Vlad, and it's basically Vlad's story. Ever since I read the Night Hunter series, I've wanted to see a story about Vlad. Like, there are a few others, like Mankari. She didn't book for Mankari's, although I expected a series for him. And then there is Vlad. I was like, okay, it's probably going to be a few years before she gets around to it. Little me didn't realize that I was already well behind in the Night Hunter series, like years behind the Night Hunter series. So of course, me figuring it'll be years before I see a Vlad book, Vlad was already here. So, but I really did love this book, and this is I've read all the books in her Night Hunter series, and this is a completely different series, and I was kind of nervous going into it because I'm like, what if I don't like it? What if I only like that series? Because it has happened before where I try to read another series or spin-off series about characters who were in the books and I just didn't like them. So I was kind of worried about that going into this, but I really, really did like it. So this is about Vlad and Layla. Layla has the ability to absorb electricity and even use it as a weapon, though you don't find that out till later on. She accidentally touched a down power line when she was a kid, and now her body automatically makes its own electricity, and if you touch her it would feel like a static shock, or like a little static shock to a big static shock, depending on how much electricity her body has been holding on to. And anyone she touches feels that shock, but if she touches you for a while, eventually it starts to cook you from the inside. So she cannot touch people hardly ever, and that's with her left hand. But with her right hand, she has the ability to see people's past, presents, and futures, depending on what she's looking for. And these vampires come looking for her so that they can use her as a weapon to find out, places Vlad's gonna be, where he is now, things like that. But throughout this contact, Vlad starts to notice that she's there, and she ends up getting his help to get her out of the situation, but only if she agrees to work with him the way she was working for the other vampires. But it was very good. The ending, a little predictable, just a tiny bit, but only because you kind of figure there's nowhere else to go but this direction. But it was very good, and I definitely plan on continuing on with this series. Oh, I haven't given this a star rating yet because I just finished this. I think I will give it like maybe a 3.7. Well, that is my August wrap up, and I will see you guys next time.